Then she moves on to the surrender piece. And surrender is another word that has a negative connotation to many. In a world where retreat and surrender imply defeat and weakness, we are taught that with the power of the will, we ought to be able to overcome our natures, and that not only those who are weak or lacking in fortitude and morals would ever become addicted to a substance. People of good character simply don't find themselves in such a situation. When I was reading the line of lacking in fortitude and morals, I did want to touch on the topic as far as, and this has come up there from one of my subscribers. Hello there. In the comments, we were talking about that. Again, I acknowledge that this is an illness that I have. It was something that I could not just get my willpower just to remove from. At some point down the line, the things that I had done, and even reading the list of questions and answering yes to them, I found that I got into kind of like a shame spiral. And at somewhere down the line, I felt like I was a really bad person. She also mentions about when a person walks into a 12-step meeting, and when someone shares or speaks, I know when I share that I am an alcoholic. So when I declare I am and state what it is that is basically my addiction or whatever compulsive behavior that I am, she talks about that this is the first time that we've been entirely honest with ourselves. And the main 3 points, and I honestly call them just as principles too, is that in order for this program to work, I have to be open-minded, willing, and honest. And when she talks about declaring that I am an alcoholic because I diagnosed myself, it really was telling me that, hey, I respect myself enough to tell the truth and be honest with myself. And it got me one step closer from where I thought I was being powerless and surrendering, that I'm slowly regaining my power back. She talks about morality also, and she says the truth is that addiction and compulsion have little to do with morality. So many people find themselves in a state of self-condemnation because they feel that they are addicted because of some sort of moral weakness or deficiency of character, and that's simply not the case. Being an alcoholic or an addict says nothing about your character. It doesn't. And I did talk about that in the first video, about that sometimes people view that as, again, here we go with the self-will. It has nothing to do with self-will. This is a disease. This is an illness, and I'm trying to treat it and trying to be better. And so instead of either making empty promises or something like that, my role and my responsibility is to take action and show others that I'm really trying to recover every single day. And it goes back to the thing of the feeling of shame, that when we go through the list of questions, and yes, if I answered all of them, I almost kind of go into a shameful feeling of like, well, there was this one time I should have been there. This was my fault. It's so easy to get in that shame spiral. And I remember in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous about how that feeling of shame is almost like a guilty pleasure because it almost feels so comfortable. I'm not stating this like verbatim out of the big book, but that is how, or out of the 12 and 12, but that's what it sounded like to me. It was almost like a self-indulgence of feeling that self-pity that ego likes to feed off of. And again, this has no judgment on your character if you have an addiction or compulsive behavior. I really appreciate one of the followers that I was speaking to in one of the comments in the last video, sharing stories like that are personal to us. That is not our character. That doesn't define us as a human being for the mistakes that we made. So we take the responsibility for them. And when we do that, again, it's just one step closer in realizing that I am worthy. I am worthy of respect. I'm worthy of respect for myself and reclaiming my power. I failed to mention when I started that she did explain that she broke this down into, I want to say, like 3 parts. She goes into the step, then she has a practical application, and then she talks about working. Practical application, I guess, is something like, it's something very relatable. So she uses like a car, knowing that if you take like a perfectly good working car to a mechanic and say fix it, I mean, there's nothing that the mechanic really can do. Say that I know that my alternator is not working. The car is still drivable. I know that it will get me to point A and point B for some time, but I know somewhere down the line, if I don't have the money to fix it right now, and I keep putting it off, the alternator is really going to do some damage to the car to where it's not going to be drivable. The longer that I do put it off and I don't address the issue or the problem is going to get worse. So I do like the practical application of this also, because sometimes I did notice, like, the way that when the big book was written, because it's been written many years ago, it's very meaty in its verbiage and it's not something that's too hard and that's so much more relatable. She goes on to giving a step 1 ritual. So this is what I can add to and apply to my practice. And I actually have done something like this but critiqued it. She really invites you to go out, be in nature, and see if nature will stop doing its thing. She uses the reference as far as like going into an ocean or where you can be around the elements, maybe if it's raining outside, and really getting grounded, being in contact with nature, and then seeing if it will just stop, like willing it to stop. It won't, unless you are really that gifted and you can control the elements of the weather. But at that point, she does say, if you can do that, then your life might not be unmanageable. I tried going outside and trying to make it rain, not make it rain like money. Really try to pull the elements of a day that was sunny and bright, and I feel the wind, I feel the ground beneath my feet, and I feel the rays of the sun, and it's such a beautiful day, and I just want it to rain, and it doesn't. And I keep trying to will it, and I get nothing. Second time I tried this was the last full moon that we had. It was a super windy night. I was trying to do a ritual for bonfire and burning some bay leaves and petitions out, and the wind was just roaring where I couldn't even get the fire started. I asked my husband for some help, and we tried, and eventually we kind of got it together, but I was calling in help for keeping the fire on and not even thinking about the wind to stop. But then I start asking for the wind to stop, and I can't make nature stop doing what it's doing, because nature's going to do what it does on its own. So I did really feel powerless in that moment, and at some point I was able to get my fire. Did the wind stop? No, but it was learning how to navigate it and really just kind of making do with what I had. That is as far as step 1. I did want to cover one other thing, is that I talked to my sponsor this past Monday, and I'm very grateful that I have a sponsor who's very open to my practice. She had given me the assignment of we were going to cover the 12 steps. We were going to do this through the year, and this is not a one and done thing. I think I mentioned that before. This is something I have to continuously work on to keep my illness at bay. And so she wanted me to look at, with what I'm reading, what I'm working on, to reflect on the stillness and preparation. And I was thinking to the time of when we were between Samhain and hitting winter solstice. And most of the time we sit in reflection of this past year. We're waiting for the return of the sun. I was thinking to where I would like some more manageability in my life. Really trying to find that balance because I was feeling powerless over a lot of things in my life. Powerlessness over scheduling, powerlessness over not having enough time in the day, and really just kind of going back into I am trying to set myself up for success so I can feel the all three standpoints of mental, physical, and spiritual all balanced to where I can feel in alignment. The big book really covers a lot about being in spiritually fit condition. And that I think is part of along the lines of, that's what helps me thrive as a human being and a witch. So I'm working on that assignment, and what came up for me within this past weekend, I pulled the Strength card out of my Crow Tarot deck, and I wanted to share with you guys, if you do read tarot, we're with the major arcana cards, we follow the journey of the Fool. The Strength card I was looking at, and there was a lot of symbolisms from things that I had seen in the last few days, meaning inner strength, passion, virility, and confidence. It is the element of fire. It is not through brute force that this crow has achieved the challenging goal of taming the wild beast. It is because she has mastered her ability to connect with her higher frequency, channeling trust and respect. The positive energy she radiates enables the crow to balance confidently on the lion's nose, not in conquest, but out of mutual respect. The crow has learned how to remove her ego, quieting the hum of fear, allowing her to hear the inner guidance of her higher conscious. It is from the place she wields the true power of strength. The Strength card suggests you will have an experience that requires you to summon the power that comes only from exercising inner peace and freeing yourself from the influences of ego and fear. I read out of Tarot 22 Steps to a Higher Path book. I'd show you guys the cover, but it got dog chewed. If you can find it, I recommend this book. It's out of print. You might be able to find it at a used book online store somewhere. I was reading on Strength that talks about strength is the card that represents our inner fortitude, will, and determination. Strength may be physical, emotional, or spiritual. So again, I did talk about the last Witching Out Wednesday video that seemed like it was kind of getting on alignment, except with the emotional talks about, I talked about mental. The balance of all three keeps us fit to meet any challenge head on. The card refers to our inner will and the ability to overcome our inner obstacles. This is the taming of the inner beast, the conquering of ego and self-centered behavior. We learn from the Strength card the power of love and its results. It is through expression of the universal love reflected in the Empress that we find the connection to our feminine powers. As we cut through the false pride and the ego to find these feminine powers, the Strength will provide the path of their expression. Not being afraid to love and not being afraid to demonstrate this love are traits of the Strength card. Through spiritual courage, we will hold fast in our convictions and overcome all obstacles. Courage must be accompanied by wisdom, lest it be a trait of the fool. The Strength is a model for the passions and uncontrolled behaviors of our primal instincts. It can speak to the animal nature we will often return to if we feel threatened, for this behavior will often be shown through lust and uncontrolled sexual activities. They may lead to infidelity or deceit. There is a lesson here concerning the balance of two forces. One force is our spiritual power, the other is our physical power. When the two unite and become one force, our actions will become aligned with our higher aspirations. Physical action must have a higher purpose to be significant to humanity, yet we need both aspects before we can create. Physical energy is empty without spiritual purpose. Spiritual purpose is useless without physical action. Our higher ideals will ensure that a positive focus is our intent. This means peace over war and compassion over anger. While she holds the mouth of the lion, she seems to be taming his animal passions. Perhaps this speaks to the animal passions that we must all tame to move forward on the path. At the same time, she does not seem to be hurting the lion or suppressing it. She is simply taming or teaching it discipline. It requires courage for her. Such a lovely and delicate person to conquer the king of beasts. She has done it. And both seem better off. She and the lion have agreed on a balance and will now unite body and spirit as they celebrate the real pleasures of life. I find comfort in the strength card. Knowing what my animal instincts are, meaning my compulsive behaviors, my ego, whatever it is, and learning to tame it. I do believe in the duality of all of us having masculine and feminine energy, and really knowing how to acknowledge it, accept it, and how do I want to move forward with it. I know with surrendering and admitting powerlessness, that there is some sort of grace to it, and I get so rooted into the shame that I have to remember I need to give myself grace. I'm grateful that I was told by my lovely husband that he said, I don't have a problem with you drinking, you just don't know when to quit. I think that was probably the biggest grace that he gave me. And I honestly feel like he was showing the strength card to me in a sense, trying to tame the beast that couldn't be tamed. And at some point, I listened. I was clear enough to listen and try something. And asking for that help, that was a step of regaining some of my sovereignty back. So when I asked for the help, that is slowly me regaining my strength and me regaining my power back. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and got something out of it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And until next time, guys, I'll see you on Wednesday. Be well. All right. Bye.